Friends, today in this video, let me show you how to convert SQL Server date time to date. Now, as part of this video tutorial, we are going to discuss 5 simple approaches to convert date time to date. Okay, so the first approach will be using convert function. Then we will see how we can use cast function to convert date time to date. And then the third approach will be we can also use date data type to convert date time to date, right? And the next approach, that is the fourth approach, is using the date add and date difference function. And then the last approach will be how we can use format function to convert a date time to a particular date in SQL Server. Now, without making any delay, what I'll do, I'll just navigate to my SQL Server Management Studio where we will see all these approaches one by one. Now let me go there. Now you can able to see I have already logged into my SQL Server Management Studio and I have multiple databases I have created here. Out of that I have a database called test where I'm going to perform all these approaches, right? Now what I'll do, I'll just start writing these queries that is needed here, right? So if I'll say, I will say select get date. So get date is the main method that we are going to use here. Select get date as current date time. Okay, current date time. Now, if I will execute this particular query, you can able to see it is giving me. Let me just zoom it a little bit so that you will clearly see this, right? So now you can able to see we got the output as date and time. Okay, but our requirement is we don't want this time part, right? Only the date part we want. So for that, this is where the first approach comes to picture, right? So what we can do here, we will have to write a separate query here using the convert function. That is the first approach here, right? The convert, and then what we'll tell here, make it date, and then get date, get date, right? As current date, right? So this is the complete query, guys. This is the complete query. You can able to see it here. If I will execute this, you can able to see we got the expected output, that is the current date only we got, right? So this is the first approach, guys. Now the second approach is how we can use cast function to convert this date time to date, right? Now before moving to the cast function, in the same convert function we have one more approach also that I will show it to you here, right? So what I'll do, I'll just copy this query and I'll paste it here. Now there is one more way also to uh, convert this date time to date using the convert function. What you can do, instead of date, you just mention here worker. Okay, now I'll change it to worker, and then get date, and then we have to use the date format code, right? So there is a style code, it is there. So I will just show you each one. So first one is 101. Okay, and what we are telling here is say we will say it format date. Okay, now this is a style code for the date. Okay, so there are multiple style codes are there. So when you are telling 101, it will just convert this date format to mm/dd/yy, right? In the same way, we have 101 also, sorry, 110 also, 111 also, and 112 also, right? So we will do the demo here so that you will get the exact output how it is behaving, right? So if I will just execute this, So I'm sorry, I didn't select the complete query. So you can able to see we got the expected output. Okay, as you can able to see the output is same, the date only, not the date time, only date we are able to convert successfully, but the format is mmddyyyy, right? So if I'll change it to, say, I will make it 110 now. Okay, and the rest of the query will be same. If I'll execute this, you can able to see now this is converted to the hyphen, right? Now you can able to see it is mmdd hyphen dd hyphen yyy. Same way, if I'll make it now, if I'll make it to 111, okay, and I will execute this query, you can able to see now it is yyy slash mm then dd. It is now slash, right? And the year is in the front now, right? Same way, if I'll make it 112 and I will try executing this, you can able to see what it is. There is no slash and hyphen, right? It started directly with yyy and then then dd, right? So these are the formatting codes or style code you can utilize along with the convert function. Okay, to convert the date time to the date. Okay, so this is all about this convert function, how we can utilize to change the date format from date time to date, right? So this is all about the convert function. Now let's move to the cast function. I will write down the query now. Select cast, right? And then in the bracket we can mention again the get date as date, right? Then we can specify something as casted date. So up to you what you are going to mention. If I'll execute this, you can able to see we got the expected output, which is in the format of YY, then DD, then MM hyphen, right? So, and we are successfully converted this date and time to only date, right? So this is the second approach, guys, using the cast function, how we are going to change it, right? Now the third approach is how we can use the date data type to convert the date time to only date, right? So for that, what I have done, I have already written the query because it is taking more time to write down the query here. What I have done is I have already written in Notepad because it is little bigger. I'll go to the Notepad. You can able to see this is the query which I have already written, right? So let me just zoom it. You can able to see the query here. I will just copy it and I will go to the SQL Server. I'll paste it, right? So you can able to see the query here, right? So what I am trying to tell is I am declaring this date time value variable which contains a particular date with time, right? And then what we are trying to tell is we are telling that select date, I mean that particular variable as original date time, and then we are using the cast function, okay, converting to date as date only. Okay, so basically we are again using the cast function here, but we are using the date data type, right? It's almost similar like how we have done in the using the cast function. If I'll execute this particular query, you can able to see we got the expected output. It is telling us this is the original date time, and we are converted to only date, right? This is YYYY, DD, and MM with the hyphen, right? So this is the date type function, data type, how we are going to use it and convert it to from date time to only specific date, right? Now, the next approach is how we can use date add and date difference function, right? That also, that query already I have written. Let me go to the notepad and copy that it for you so that I will execute it and show it to you. This is the query, guys. Let me just copy it and I will paste it here. You can able to see it here. Select date add. Then within that we are passing the parameter day and then date difference. Again, within that, we are passing the parameter as day and then 0 followed by get date. And then we are closing the first one date add function with 0 as date only. Okay, if I'll execute this particular query, you can able to see all the time is replaced by 0 and the date only we are getting, right? So this is how we can use this approach along with this date add and date difference function to convert that date time to only date, right? Now the last approach is how we can use format function to convert date time to the date, right? Now what we can type here, we can say select, what we need to type select, then format. This is the format function within the bracket. What you need to type, we will say get date. This is the get date, right? And then comma, we need to provide the date format, right? So here what you need to provide, say we will say YY the year first, then then DD, right? I will say as formatted date, right? So this is the complete command, guys. We are passing within the format function, we are passing the get date and the particular format, the way you want your dates should look like, right? So if I'll execute this query, you can able to see we got the expected output here, that is the current date, date and time, and it is converted to the date successfully, right? So these are all the approaches you can utilize to convert the date time to a particular date in SQL Server. So that's it for today, guys. I thought to quickly show you how to convert the date time to a particular date in a SQL Server, and these are the 5 approaches you can utilize to do that. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you found this video little helpful for you, kindly subscribe to our channel to support us so that you will get lots of free SQL Server tips, different helpful Azure tips, and many more. Thanks a lot again, guys, and have a nice day. Bye bye.